Yes, guy. Welcome to OverDrive for a Tuesday. Jim, Tatti and Frank Corrado with you. Struddy is being hooked up and will join us sometime in the next 20 minutes or so. Oh, Frankie C.
What do
you
I
took
got?
my shirt, guy.
What do I got there on my shirt, Jimmy?
Oh, that looks excellent. This is part of the prototype assessment. Is you have to see it on somebody else.
That's right. Yeah. So how does it look good? Is it everything you thought it was going to be? It's too bad you have to look at it on me, though. That's not pleasant. But
guy, I don't know how you got there, but no, it looks good. Actually, my issue was, do I leave my name on it? And I think I will, because I can barely see it, which is good. It's understated, which it should be.
That's right. Just like you, understated. Always have been.
Couldn't have said it better myself, guy. So Olympic stuff going on. The Major League Baseball trade deadline hits at 6 tonight. So we have on the show coming up very shortly from Paris, Rob Longley from the Toronto Sun, Keegan Matheson sometime after 5, because he's obviously busy. Jays are in Baltimore, and the trade deadline hits at 6. Marty Baron will be by to talk hockey at 5:30. At 6, Richard Griffin from, used to be with the Toronto Star, a good friend of the show. Let me see if Exit Philosophy Podcast with Scotty MacArthur. Griffsthepitch.com is his website. And at 6:30, we have Confirm or Deny.
I thought we were playing Yes Guy, No Guy this
Confirm
week.
or Deny.
Okay.
It's OverDrive. There was some sort of legal issue. Confirm or deny.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, so that's what we'll go with. Did you watch? I got up very early this morning to watch the Canadian men's basketball team get by Australia. You watched it?
I did. And you know what? The main takeaway from that is that team can defend. And when they really want to dig in and the going gets tough, I think there was probably a little bit of a question mark around that, considering the way the game finished against Greece. But there's no questions after that game against Australia as far as how that team can defend, because they did it. And that was a defensive clinic, and it wasn't just one or two players, although Dylan Brooks was really good again defensively. It was a whole team buy-in, and that's the big takeaway there, is that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had a good game. It wasn't his best game. RJ Barrett had a very good game, but defensively, that was a team that really bought into what they were preaching and making that improvement. So good for them, and it's nice to see signs of improvement as the tournament goes on, Jimmy.
So my analysis would have been well executed, well coached, because they made adjustments at the half. And I find this is the way we describe the Raptors, because they don't have a lot of big presence on the Raptors, not a very big team, much like Team Canada at the Olympics, the men's side. Offensive rebounds, 8 to 10. So Australia had 10 defensive rebounds, 27-25 for Australia. But here's where it gets interesting. Turnovers, 11 for Canada and 18 for Australia. Points from turnovers, 28 for Canada, just 10 for Australia.
There's your game.
Yeah, so if you can defend, what that means is you're causing turnovers, you're stopping the other team from scoring. This is how sometimes with basketball, there's all those points. But if you're not defending, if you're not causing turnovers, then all you're left with is the normal possession you get in the shot. And what happens is we almost do this in the wrong order. Wow, they're not shooting well because they're not defending, because they're just getting their normal possessions. They're not involved in the game.
Right. And
so that's what happens.
Right. And, if you're not getting offensive rebounds, obviously you're not getting second chances. It is interesting, though, watching this, and it's FIBA basketball compared to how the NBA can kind of roll. Because, a team in the NBA, they get on a roll, and it's like it's a runaway train, and it's never really going to stop. And you work the Raptors games, you see it all the time, where it's like it can really get away from them. I feel like watching these games, you can dig in a little bit more, and you can kind of stop that momentum a little easier in the FIBA game than you can with the NBA game. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. But
the FIBA game is a lot more physical. So there was that massive shot that Lou Dort received from Mills. Got decked.
Yeah.
And I thought, and if that's in the NBA, it's a flagrant. There's a review flagrant foul, just a regular foul. And I went, okay, that's pretty aggressive. But I just loved the way Canada played, because they were on the spot. I mean, this game, for 3/4 of it, went back and forth. It was like a 2-4 point sway back and forth, and you didn't know who was going to win. But Canada really dug in, defended well, and I'm really proud of those guys. That was a great game to watch.
And guess what? Now Canada's 2-0 in the tournament, and it's a very difficult group that they have to play in for sure. Yeah. But they've got 2 in the bank now. You know how important that is, especially against Greece, especially against Australia. Like, everyone knows that those are good basketball nations, and there was never going to be an easy path to a medal for Canada. No. But it feels like they're they're on their way there, and they're actually improving as the games go by. And it happens quick, right? Like, that improvement has to be drastic, and it has to happen quick, because before you know it, the thing's over. And you don't have much time. Like, you don't have a lot of time to gel. You don't have a lot of time to come together. So good for them. And there's a lot of talent there. They should be able to do it, and they have done it. So to your point, it was very well executed today.
It was, and goes back to the coach who's only been on the job for slightly more than a year. So I just like, but again, it's Raptor-like. It's not a big team. It's not an overpowering team.
Is it Raptor-like, though?
Yeah, it is, because the Raptors, I find, and I've had my Raptor guests on my other show, that when I'm talking about...
What's that other show called?
The Yes Guy, the radio show.
Thursdays and Fridays, 10 a.m. to 12?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well done. But I've had the people I work with on those Raptor games. I've had Jonesy on. I've had Warren Ward on as a regular guest. And when we talk about this national team, I will say it's like how we talk about the Raptors when they win. When we're talking about when the Canadian men's basketball team wins a game, it's Raptor-like. And when we talk about if there's a problem, again, it's Raptor-like. But it all comes down to, I mean, we talk about this with the Leafs all the time, offense from defense. That applies in basketball. You defend properly, and suddenly the offense shows up.
It very much does. I'll be curious to get your opinion on, as the season starts with the Raptors, how many times do you think you're going to be going on the mic after the game talking about a game like we just saw from Canada this morning with the Raptors? Like, I understand they're built the same way because it's not an overly big team.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like there's a lot of optimism around where the Raptors are going to be this year. Well, best case scenario, they're at the bottom of the play-in.
R.J. Barrett, he played a heck of a game today.
Unbelievable game.
So with him, Quickly, and Scotty Barnes.
There's your core.
Yeah, if those three guys can push forward and they can bring in some guys to support them in the starting units, because I think they have the depth. I don't know where their story goes, but I'm intrigued to follow it.
Yeah.
I have no idea how good it can be or if it's not going to be good.
And it's good that you say that the depth is better, because the depth has been an issue for the team for a while. And, anytime Nick Nurse had to go to the bench, it was an issue. Yeah, exactly. He wouldn't. He flat out wouldn't. But if he did, it was an issue.
But that's living up to past success, right? Yeah. So we have this standard. We're trying to win again. And you don't really admit to yourself we don't have the roster to do that, but you can't give up. Yeah. And so you streamline who plays because you have confidence in them. But in effect, what happened was they played them out.
Yeah.
So they ran out of gas. You drive six guys into the court. They're overextended on a nightly basis, and then guess what? After game 65, nothing.
Yeah, and think, it's very different because this is a national team, Team Canada, compared to an NBA team and the Toronto Raptors. But it's amazing the difference that it makes when you have players coming off the bench that probably normally, Jimmy, would not be coming off the bench, right?
They bought into the team, that's for sure.
Exactly. Everyone, and we talked to Leo Routens about it yesterday, everyone has really sacrificed here a little bit on the individual side of things, which makes sense because this is the Olympics. You're representing your country. There's a lot that comes with that. You have to have a little bit of an individual sacrifice in order for the greater good of the team. And, not only have they bought into improving defensively, not only do they have the playmakers in the backcourt that can get things done, they really have bought into, the sacrifice and everything that goes with that. So it's great. It's one of the very nice stories so far with Canada at the Olympics.
It is. Rugby sevens for women, silver medal today. So we've got 2 and 2 for 6.
Pretty good.
So far, yeah. I don't know what the expectations were, but I don't. Is there anything that you would say has been disappointing? I don't think. Well,
no,
aside from the soccer scandal.
Well, okay, yes, but that's that you hope that's just a one-off. Yeah. I don't know how you feel, but I don't go into the Summer Olympics with overly high hopes for Canada. I don't expect Canada to be near the top of the medal count. It's just we're a cold weather country. You could make the argument that there's not as much funding that goes into a lot of these sports and these athletes that some of the other countries are getting. So they're always having to work up against that. But anytime Canada can get a gold, that's unbelievable in the Summer Olympics. Anytime we're medaling, I think that's a great accomplishment. And we do have a lot of great athletes. Summer McIntosh has been on full display, how dominant she's been. It's been good. It's been very eye-opening as far as how great the athletes that we have representing Canada are at these Olympics.
So would you say that this show started better than yesterday?
I don't know.
A little more edge?
I don't know why.
My drive in yesterday was a saunter. I mean, there was just no busy lane changes, nothing. And today it was like an F1 race.
I texted you yesterday. What did I text you in the morning? I said, Jimmy, get a good pregame meal.
Oh, right, yeah.
Maybe get a little bit of a nap.
Yeah.
What I wanted to tell you, and I didn't say this because we were in a group chat with a couple other gentlemen.
Oh, but say it now.
I wanted to say, Jimmy, you have to pretend you're the captain, you're John Tavares, and you got to lead this team through the first round. Like, that's how you got to think of it. I didn't say it, though.
No, I know, but in maybe the first 45 seconds, I was a little soft yesterday, but I did show up. Oh, yeah. Today, I was, I think 5 minutes into the drive with the lane changes in front of me.
Yeah.
Not me. I'm watching these people that, right up behind you, and it's like, dude, like...
The driving BMWs, dude, those guys?
Well, it's like, dude, have a little vision. Look what's in front of you because they're not moving.
Do you drive slow in the fast lane, Jim?
No. That's
you can't. That's a no guy. By
although
the way.
I did see a tractor trailer in the fast lane.
That's
on
also
the QEW
a no guy.
Today. I'm looking down ahead and go, why are you there? Why? What?
I'm also curious. One thing, like, I don't say yes guy, no guy that much. Like if
I set a record, but there was a word in between.
Yeah, like if one of my buddies calls me, I will say yes guy. Like I don't say hello, I just say yes guy. I've been doing that for years, even prior to knowing you. But like, how often in a day, subconsciously in your head, do you say yes guy?
In my head?
Yeah. It's got to be like on a loop all day.
I just did it 7 times.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
Yeah. Yes, guy.
Good thing there's no decoder up there.
You know why I was saying yes, guy, yesterday? When I saw the return that the Jays got for Yusei Kikuchi.
I like that.
That is a big time yes
on
guy.
These guys. So Bloss, who's highly rated, Loper Fido, who was highly rated and has dropped a bit, and Wagner. I think these guys come in like top 10 prospects.
Yes, guy.
All 3 of them.
Sorry, I corrected myself. I said yes. I meant to say yes, guy. Here's we can't pretend that we know everything about these young prospects.
Well, you got to do some research.
We got to do some research. We got to go by what the pundits are saying, what the scouts are saying. But one of the things I saw a lot yesterday was that if the Jays were able to get Bloss in the deal, that would have been a great deal. If they were just able to get the outfielder, what's his name, Loper Fido? If they were just able to get him, that would have been a good deal. Yeah. They got both of the guys in the deal,
and Wagner's a pretty good prospect too,
right?
From what I've read.
So they got 3 guys. 2 of those guys, everyone is saying are pretty quality prospects.
I know, but there's a jump on the prospect thing, which I have respect for prospects. I think they're great until you need them to play 162 games.
That's fine.
That's a different process.
But if you don't have them, you don't know.
But there's a liquidation that goes on. Oh, we got all these prospects, and then I would say, well, then you have to use them.
Yes,
then they have to step up.
They do.
So this is plan. This is the first part of the plan. Move out the expiring contracts, which I think Griff told me last week on my show was something like $46 million.
Yep.
Then you've got $46 million to spend in the offseason. You've cleaned out those guys. You've got some value back. You've got a bunch of prospects. If you brought 10 in the door and 3 worked out, everybody would be thrilled.
Sure.
If you had 3 guys out of those 10 that made the Jays roster in the next 2 years, you'd be thrilled. Mm-hmm. I think that's a pretty good shooting average.
Yeah.
But the key still is in all of this, what are you going to do in the offseason?
Well, they'll have to spend money. They'll have to make sure that they're bringing in like MLB caliber players that can help you make the playoffs. But I don't know, like after the Kikuchi trade, the thought after that was, if that's what you can get for Yusei Kikuchi, who has not pitched well, Jimmy, let's be honest, he hasn't pitched well the last, 4 weeks, let's say. Like he's been very pedestrian. If that's what you're getting for him, what do you get for Chris Bassitt? Like, how do you not start entertaining, moving on from some of your starting pitching? Because, if you got guys that, you're not that you're not high on, but if you can get younger players that are going to be here in the future that you think can turn into more sustainable, successful players in your organization, like how do you not capitalize on this kind of seller's market? Well, so there's 2 questions come out of that. And one is, we're a little pressed for time because we're going to go to Paris and hook up with Rob Longley very shortly. But 2 things come out of that. The comparative trade. If you got this for this guy, you should be able to. That, for me, that rarely works out. It doesn't. And when we do that in the NHL, it's like, oh, look what they got for this guy, and then the next comparable
comparable trade, you go, well, they got stiffed.
Well,
they didn't get the same value.
It's hard to not think that way because, you see one return and you're like, okay, well, I got a pitcher that's even better than that. Like, what's the other team willing to give me? But you're right. It takes one GM to make a trade. The other GM might not be thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens, though. There's just under 2 hours to go.
Yeah, so I got to throw it a break. Doogie, what are we on, TSN 2 today? Is it 2 or 4? 2, okay, thank you. Okay, OverDrive continues in TSN 2, TSN 1050, the iHeartRadio app, and streaming online. Oh, yes, guy. Much better with the mic on, isn't it? Welcome back to OverDrive. It depends who you
ask about that, actually.
That's right. The viewer poll, oh, no. No, it's not. Okay.
Let the audience decide, Guy.
Let the viewers decide is one of my lines. But anyway, Jim, Tatti, and Frankie Corrado with you. Going over to Paris very shortly to hear from Rob Longley from the Toronto Sun. What a sweet assignment that would be.
Yeah. And okay, so he's covering a lot of the swimming down there, looks like.
Yeah.
Which is great. Canada's having a lot of success there. There's a lot of great stories, obviously led by Summer McIntosh. That's a cool assignment to have.
I want the scoop on those things that are in the pool at the bottom. And there's
the bottom.
There's this. I don't know what they are, but there's some. When you watch the swim, you look. What's that on the floor of the pool?
Is it a camera or something?
Either that or maybe a timing device. I have no idea what that is. And there's this other little train thing that goes and then stops. I don't know what all that is, but it obviously has to do with either the television telecasting of it. Or the officiating. Oh yeah. My! Where's my coffee?
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll go to Paris now.
Let's
you have your passport?
I do.
Okay, good. Rob Longley is here from the Toronto Sun from Paris. Rob, how are you today, sir?
Bonjour, my friends. I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Very good. So give us, just because we haven't been there, and give us some sort of a travel log as to, what you're experiencing just from, forget about the reporting for now, but things that you've seen.
Well, it's a world-class city, Jim. It's a bustling city. It's a classy city with a lot of history. And, in my opinion, anyways, when there's something special when an Olympic Games are in Europe, and it's the first time since 2012 in London that we've been back in Europe, and I think you can feel that buzz, and you certainly feel relief from athletes, but I just think the sense of the spectacle is so much stronger, not just because we're in Europe, but because we finally have another Games that isn't restricted by COVID, which we basically have to go back to 2018 to claim one of those. But yeah, the atmosphere is amazing. I'm just walking the streets. There's certainly an old world flair here in Paris. The cafes, people sitting outside all hours of the day, having a coffee or a glass of wine or a bottle of beer, whatever it is. It's just, it's got that real European flair to it, and almost entirely in a good way.
How's the fan turnout for the Canadians? Like, we're very passionate about our sports and supporting our athletes, and Paris is not exactly across the world. It's a very doable flight and easy place to get to. How's the Canadian contingent there that aren't the athletes?
I'd say it's pretty strong, Frankie, so far. I've been mostly at the pool. I've been swimming as my main assignment here, which is obviously a pretty good gig given the nature of the team. But certainly last night when Summer McIntosh won her gold medal, there were a lot of Canadian fans, flags in the stands. A lot of Canadian fans, a lot of people wearing red and white, and you see them on the streets, you see them on the subways, you see them in the cafes. There's a fairly strong presence. Obviously, it's a big ask for a fan to come to Europe because it's expensive to get here. It's expensive to stay here, especially during the Olympics, and tickets are expensive. But people love to travel to see their family and their friends, and they love to see the spectacle. And there's certainly a strong Canadian presence here.
So one more sort of periphery question. In comparing to other games that you've been at in terms of getting around and going to venues, how does it stack up that way?
Probably the most difficult, Jim. I've been fortunate enough to go to, this is my 9th, so I'm pretty lucky to have done that in my career. And usually there's an Olympic bus system that gets the media around to various venues. And often at games that I've been at, there's an Olympic park where there's several venues centrally located in one spot. Here in Paris, it's spread out all over the city and the suburbs, and it's basically getting from point A to point B via subway. They decided to scrap the whole idea of having buses for a couple of reasons. They're trying to make this a green games, but also it's a pretty difficult city to navigate above ground. But having said that, the metro system here is highly efficient, and I've had no issues with it. It's a little steamy underground today because the cars aren't air conditioned and it's 35 degrees Celsius. But no, it's for the most part been relatively easy getting around. Maybe a little bit more challenging than in previous games, but the system that's in place is allowing us to navigate okay.
So Summer McIntosh has a dominant performance yesterday. She wins a gold medal. We're talking about it here in Canada. You're writing about it. Everyone seems to be talking about it. I'm curious, on the world scale, other countries, other programs, what do they kind of say about Summer McIntosh and her dominance?
That's a really, really good point, Frankie. And I alluded to it in one of the pieces that I filed earlier today. And it's not just Canadians that are embracing her. The sort of the hardcore swimming people and the hardcore swimming fans, I think, really see her as the next great superstar in the sport. And, people are even suggesting that she is the best woman swimmer here. And that's, that's saying a lot because there's some amazing Aussie swimmers here. And of course, Katie Ledecky is still swimming. So the fact that she's viewed internationally as the next great superstar in the sport really is kind of mind blowing when you think about it. That she's just a 17-year-old and that she competed in her first games 3 years ago as a 14-year-old, and I think people recognize her talent because she's won world championships and she's held world records. But until she's kind of performed on the biggest stage, with 14,000 people in this really rocking arena, swimming arena here. There were some question marks, but man, this kid is as poised of an athlete as I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of them. And she's just all business when she gets on the pool deck, laser focused when she gets on the blocks, and then she swims like a champion. I don't know what more you could say about her. There probably are not enough superlatives.
Yeah, I mean, the feeling is that this is the first chapter in a very long and exciting book. We kind of equate it to the arrival of Gretzky or Sidney Crosby, or plug in your favorite hockey player from whatever generation you want. The anticipation is there, and she's meeting it, isn't she?
Yeah, Jim. And in fact, I asked both her and her coach yesterday after the gold medal win, are you just getting started? And both of them said 100% yes. This is just kind of like the coming out party. And she's a professional athlete. She's already got a bunch of endorsements, and she expects to be around for multiple games, maybe 3 more, maybe 4 more Olympics. And it is just the start of something big. So who knows what her track record's going to be when all is said and done. Penny Alexiak, the other great Canadian swimmer, has won more medals than any other Canadian Olympian at 7. I mean, there's a pretty good chance that Summer McIntosh will leave here with 5. And that's in, her first full Olympics. She was I don't really count the one when she was 14. That was just getting her feet wet, literally and figuratively. But yeah, I think it's just the start of something really good. And she's already world-class elite, but she's going to be around for a while.
Jimmy and I were talking before you came on, Rob, just about, what the expectations for Canada as a country would be. And we've seen a judo gold medal. We've seen the gold medal for Summer McIntosh. We got a silver medal for the women's rugby sevens. You're obviously you're following the swimming very closely, but I'm sure you have an eye on a lot of things that are happening there Canada-wise. What is the perceived outcome for Canada as a nation at the Summer Olympics this year?
Yeah, I think, the numbers that I heard from people whose opinions I trust were that, 20 in the neighborhood of 21, 22 medals would be considered a good games. And maybe they're a little bit light so far on that count. Lots of the games still to go, of course. I was just at the pool tonight where Kylie Moss, the great backstroker who's won multiple medals at the last 2 Olympics, just missed. She finished 4th. And when you have performances like that, it kind of stings a little bit. But then you have other ones that jump up, like the judo and the rugby sevens and those kinds of things. So it's I think there's maybe a little bit of a slow start, but north of 20 wouldn't be out of the question, in my opinion.
Rob, I just want to slip one more, and I know you got a time crunch. In terms of the Canadian soccer, the women's soccer controversy, if you will, what's the spillover? Is there a spillover with other Canadian athletes at the Olympics, or is it just sort of off to the side?
Yeah, you know what? I think there certainly was a spillover at the start, Jim, because people were all these athletes that you talk to. They're excited about their events. They're excited about the opening ceremony. they're excited, quite frankly, about having competing for a company that has a country rather that has a reputation of being clean and above board. And then to have this happen, it's kind of impossible to not feel like you're being dragged down a little bit by it. And I think for the most part, because it happened so early, 3 or 4 days before the opening ceremony, and because there was almost a new chapter every day, it really took on a life of its own. And so many people were just so anxious to get the real games going and move on with it and start winning medals, because there's no way that you don't feel that influence. I mean, they're proud Olympians through and through, and they don't want to be dragged down by a controversy. It's just a bit of a stain on the country, and sure, athletes were feeling it.
Rob, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, my pleasure. Maybe we'll do it again before we're done.
Oh, hopefully, yeah. Look forward to that. Rob Longley from the Toronto Sun reporting to us from Paris. Nice assignment.
Yeah, nice assignment. Canada's having some success in the pool, rugby sevens. It's good. It's a good time to be a Canadian sports fan, Jimmy.
It is, and the Canadian soccer story resumes tomorrow, right at 3:00, and before then we'll know what the ruling is on the appeal. So that could be that's going to be a big topic of conversation one way or the other tomorrow. And the men's basketball again on Friday. I mean, this stuff, when you're watching it, it's sort of a wall of video that hits you, but then you can't turn away from the wall. It's just there.
For sure. And I think with the women's soccer, I feel like, and I don't know how you feel, like obviously everyone is behind the players because they didn't ask for this. They didn't choose for this controversy to happen around them. But it almost feels like it's can't miss stuff. Watching them band together and piece this thing together one win at a time. And now they do have some control over their own destiny. To get behind that, I think it's going to have a lot of eyeballs on it. And the controversy obviously was, it was a stain on the program. It was a stain on the country. No doubt about that. But it definitely has brought a lot of intrigue and a lot of eyeballs as far as what these girls can do on the pitch. And that is what it's all about. That is the main story that always should have been front and center, is how talented and how good they are. And now more people will be watching that because of the drone controversy.
Well, look, we live in a busy world, busy times. There's layers of income and revenue and business plans for all sports. But you were in the NHL. So I've always said it's the players' game. I don't care who wants to take credit for whatever. Leave me alone. It's the players' game. So anytime I would defer to, that shouldn't be in the game, I would say, well, what do the players feel like? Because it's their livelihood. Sure. They've got to put up with it, and they have to pay the price for it. Everybody else makes money off it. Yeah. But the players have the give of their lives to it. I know they're well paid. Yes. But so what? I mean, I don't have a problem with that. But as a former athlete, I mean, didn't you not feel like you were part of something with the players?
For sure. Like, that's why the NHLPA, which I can speak to, like you said, that I was a part of it for a short period of time, I guess. Like, that's why you have say on rule changes and, how the CBA is going to work, how the revenue split is happening, because you're the ones that are directly involved in it. But I was trying to, we talked to Amy Walsh yesterday, and I was trying to put myself back into the player's point of view as far as, you sit in those meetings with the coaching staff, you go through all the video, and you just kind of trust that the information you get is accurate, and what they're showing you is right. Well, you also you hope that they're getting things the right way. You know what I mean? Like all the information, like you just
you're depending on it.
All you do is you sit in there. Let's say the meeting's at 9:30 a.m. You show up, you sit in there, the information gets to you, you try and absorb it, and you move forward and you try and execute it the best way you can. You don't think anything more. So, I can't imagine how the players would have felt after all this information comes out. Like, they would have felt so blindsided. And the word she actually used was betrayed.
I thought that was perfect.
It was perfect. That's exactly how it would feel. You never think that something like that is going to happen, especially when you're not the one who's in control and you're not the one who's spearheading that movement. So good for them for being able to put it to the side, take care of business on the pitch. And now they'll have another game where they'll look to do just that. And destiny is kind of in their own hands. So another story that we're watching. You okay there, guy?
Yeah, I forgot to silence the phone.
Is that right?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things going on here. I'm just going to, when we were talking yesterday, I rhymed off all the expiring contracts for the Jays. One of them was Richards. He apparently has just been dealt to Minnesota, so we'll get the return on that. Okay, there we go.
Nice, JP.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe Doogie, do you want to step in? You want to give us the breaking story here, Trevor Richards?
Well, there's no return on it here yet, guys. But yes, Blue Jays have dealt Trevor Richards to the Minnesota Twins, according to multiple reports. So that's all we know right now. No return yet.
So let me check my notes. That'll mean that Kiermaier is the only expiring contract, but he's going to retire left that they have to move.
Yeah.
So that's part one. So the question I forgot from earlier was, it's great to move all the expiring contracts, but since it's a seller's market, shouldn't you be doing more?
That's what I said earlier.
Yeah.
And the thing that spurred that is you see the return that you get for Yusei Kikuchi.
Yeah.
And you have starters on your rotation that are better than Yusei Kikuchi. The thing is, the Astros were willing to pay a certain price. There's no guarantee that there's another team that's willing to up that price just because you're offering them Chris Bassitt or Kevin Gausman, which I don't know if that would even be an option, but it's just hard not to think that there would be intrigue if you're in a seller's market as far as what you can bring back if Yusei Kikuchi, who hasn't pitched very well lately, is bringing back that kind of return.
And you could always re-sign him in the offseason, right?
For sure. Yeah, and he loves it
Toronto,
here.
Yeah.
He loves it here. He lives here.
Right.
I think his family really enjoyed Toronto. And if you get the Yusei Kikuchi that you got the last 2 years of that deal and not the first year, you're in business with a good pitcher that can be, later in your rotation. And I don't know, think about where he started in his time in Toronto, where you couldn't put him on the mound anymore. He got optioned. He went to AAA. It was really bad for him. And, Pete Walker stuck with him, said they were going to work on things. They were going to improve. And he came back the next year, and he was a very reliable pitcher for the Blue Jays. So credit to him because he found something. And now he gets an opportunity with Houston, a team that goes to the playoffs every year. And they're going to rely on Yusei Kikuchi. I'm not sure how much, but they'll have him in the mix.
Okay, so Ken Rosenthal with the report. Twins requiring right-handed reliever Trevor Richards from the Blue Jays, and the return hasn't been nailed down yet, but you got to believe it's prospect number 9 or 10 on the Twins list. And they'd be lucky, really, to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's where we are.
Yes, and we always have to kind of reference that all those prospect rankings are going to be different from different services and different scouts. And, you could get the 9th ranked prospect in someone's organization. They could be the 12th ranked in yours or the 7th ranked in yours. Like it really is. It's different from team to team. But like you said, you're going to bring in as many of these guys as possible. You hope that you bring in some quality guys, and you hope that, 30% of the guys you bring in hit and become, and I think that would even be generous.
30 would be good.
That would be very, very generous. But
Yeah.
but hopefully you get, someone out of this crop of young prospects that can be a major league player that can contribute on your roster at some point.
But you still need bats to protect Bichette and Vladdy.
But that's a bigger issue.
Well, it is.
That's a bigger issue because the team went from being a high-powered team to a run prevention team. Right? Like the team changed philosophies and it didn't work for them.
I think, when you go back to last year, a lot of people, and I was one of the people that would say this, was if you replayed last year, you'd get a different result. You'd get a better result because they ran into some stuff. The stuff that stuck to the wall was you can't drive a runner in to save your life.
Yeah,
but that's just the way it mapped out. I was of the opinion, and a lot of people were, that if you replayed the entire season, you'd probably come up with 5 or 6 more wins and be in a better spot. The danger of that is, much like the team that is eliminated from the playoffs and then wins out. Well, look what we have here. Well, you had it for 2 months.
The graveyard shift, guy, it's very dangerous.
Yeah.
The graveyard shift is very dangerous because all of a sudden the pressure and the expectations, it's like a weight off your shoulder and you're playing with house money. And, teams are rolling into your ballpark or your stadium or your arena and saying, it's not the big team we're playing against. Like they do kind of let their guard down a little bit. So you have to have a little bit of caution when you see a team kind of win games after everyone's been moved along. But I don't know, like there will be some young guys here who get a look.
Sure.
And for those guys, very important because they have to prove that they're everyday major league players. And if you can't do it at that point, you probably can't do it at any other point. So you have to start now if you're the young players that are getting chances here.
Yeah, and let's be honest. I mean, this is the circle, the life circle, being complete for the Jays because they traded away a lot of those young guys that they had to be in a position to go deep. Unfortunately, they didn't go deep.
I would argue you on one thing you said there.
What?
When you said that if you replayed the season last year, it would be different. You know why I'd argue on that? Because you basically brought back the same team this year, and it was worse.
I'm saying that's what we said last year.
Yeah.
As it was happening, a couple of guests I had on my show, I would say, if they replayed the season, you get a different result, and they'd agree because that's some wacky stuff happened there.
The wacky stuff, some of the wacky stuff, though, was their own doing. Like taking out Barrios when he's dealing. That was your own doing.
No,
that is an unforced error.
In the
yes.
No.
Talking about
no, I can't. I don't subscribe to that at all. At some point, you have to have a gut feel to say the guy's on.
Yes.
That's how he is when he's eating up batters. Leave him alone.
Yeah.
Forget about that chart. Throw the chart out.
That guy was in this. Okay, but that's what I'm saying. Where like some crazy stuff happened.
Yeah,
the crazy stuff was also their own fault, like their own doing.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm never into pulling the starting pitcher. Too soon, just because. Like, what are you saving him for? You're saving him for Christmas. I mean, come on.
Thank you. Yes,
this is a winner take all situation.
Exactly. And
empty the tank.
And that's a guy who kind of refound his game as well. And I mean, we don't need to go back.
No, but I'm just saying that,
that
as they were fading, the guests I had on would say, and I would say, if they replayed the games that we're talking about, we're at 150 games now, they'd have a better record. Most people agreed with me because they got into some silly stuff. But
it was a lot of excuse making, really.
That's an observation. But to run your organization that way is absolutely wrong because things go south.
It was a lot of excuse making because. Couldn't get the offense, couldn't get the runners in scoring position.
Or you would say, well, that's not going to continue.
Right.
This just in, it did.
Nice. Yes, guy.
Yeah, you got yes, guide. Yeah, it did. It not only did it continue, it eroded further.
Well, okay, so now these are the chips here. Yeah. You had expiring contracts. You moved them all out, basically, except for one. We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
And now you've brought in the prospects. Hopefully you hit on a couple of those guys, and you might have a chance, especially the guys that you got back in the Kikuchi deal. You nailed the Kikuchi deal. Like you got a lot of good faith back from the fan base based on one trade. And it's funny how that works, Jimmy, because, the fans, the media, I think collectively here in Toronto, it's been pretty harsh towards this management group for a little while here for a number of reasons. You want to go back to, I don't know how far you want to go back, but let's just call it internal improvement didn't work, couldn't land Ohtani, didn't make anything happen, didn't address, no offense. So all that stuff, it's kind of cascaded here and snowballed onto Ross Atkins. He makes one good deal yesterday for Yusei Kikuchi, brings back two good prospects that a lot of people think highly of.
Maybe
three.
Yeah.
Because you put your scout hat on, you read like.
Well, that Loperfido guy.
Right.
Yeah, he dropped in Houston's rankings, but that doesn't mean that doesn't he's going to drop here.
Exactly, and he could just need a fresh start somewhere, and maybe he gets that in Toronto. But with one deal like that, you restore a lot of good faith. It just goes to show you how hungry the fan base here is to kind of see a plan come to fruition.
Well, because it makes everything else look better. So that's your sports analysis right there. Dude gets a goal, and suddenly the projection is, well, he's going to start scoring now, and it looks better.
That's a dangerous game.
I know, but on the one trade, because you got three legitimate prospects, suddenly the value of all the other prospects you got get elevated somehow.
Yeah. Now, if you really wanted to drive this thing home, and for maybe a Seinfeld reference, try the brassiere on.
Oh.
Trade someone who's got a little term left and see if you can really get a home run. Coming back the other way.
Well, that's a baseball trade.
Yeah.
As opposed to a liquidation sale.
Sure.
Yeah, but baseball trade.
Like I said, if that's the market for Yusei Kikuchi, how are you not testing the market on Chris Bassitt?
Well, we've got an hour and 16 minutes to sort this out.
Yeah.
Trade deadline's at 6. We'll step out now and come back and chew on a few things. It's called an open block. That's next in Overdrive on TSN2, TSN 1050, the iHeartRadio app, and streaming online.
I wanted to know if you got eyes on something, Jimmy.
Eyes on?
ESPN did the top 25 NHL players of the 21st century.
Oh.
Have you seen this list?
I sort of glossed over it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It didn't make its way across your
I just looked
your
at
morning read?
I'm not a list guy.
No?
No, it's like, whatever.
What do you mean you're not a list
No,
guy?
I don't care about that.
You don't care about it?
No, I don't get it. I'm sorry to kill your segment, but
Okay, well, it's our segment now, Jimmy. Who do you think would have been number one on that list?
in the last 24 years.
So it's the top 25 NHL players of the 21st century. So I guess starting from the year 2000 to now.
Got to be Sid.
It is Sid.
Yeah.
Yeah. It goes Sid. It goes Ovi, number 2.
Right.
And then McDavid, number 3.
Okay.
No objections there, right?
No, I could be talked into that.
Okay.
That's no problem.
Here's where maybe you might have some objection. Number 4, Patrick Kane. Really good player.
Yeah.
Like really Stanley Cups.
Who's 5 and 6?
Okay, so number 5, Nick Lidstrom. Nick Lidstrom seemingly every year won the Norris Trophy. Like they could rename it the Nick Lidstrom
They'll
Trophy.
never make him like that again. Guy was flawless.
No, that guy was unbelievable. And then at 6, it's Nathan McKinnon. At 7, it's Marty Brodeur.
Are we forgetting about somebody who may have packed it in maybe 10 years ago?
Who are you thinking of?
Well, where's Yager on that list?
Well, okay, so to round out the top 10, it went McKinnon 6, Brodeur 7, the King, Henrik Lundqvist at 8, Evgeny Malkin at 9, and Bergeron at 10. See, the thing is, like, I feel like all these guys, well, Brodeur didn't start in the 21st century. Like, he was in the 20th and then rolled over. The one name that I think, when I go down this list...
Does Lundqvist fit for you?
I could be talked into having him much lower on that list, for sure.
The names that you just rhymed off, Kane and Lundqvist, I would sort of look at to figure out, should there be somebody else there? They were all great hockey players.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but are we forgetting about somebody who maybe has been out of sight and mind for 12 years or something like that?
So the one name that intrigued me was Duncan Keith was at 23. And I think that's way too low for Duncan Keith. Multiple Stanley Cups, Conn Smythe, like almost a unanimous Conn Smythe, one of the years that they won a Stanley Cup.
Nobody really locked in the Norris after Lidstrom, though, did they?
Well, Duncan Keith was always, I feel like he was always in the conversation every single year.
Yeah, but nobody owned it.
Yeah. And so, to answer your question about Yager, I'm looking at the list right now.
Oh.
And if you want to finish off the list here, like we did the top 10, Bergeron was at 10, Chara was at 11, Stamkos was at 12. I think Steven Stamkos is a hell of a player.
Yeah.
But
JP just muttered Carey Price.
Yeah, Carey Price, really good player. Yeah. I think what may have hurt Carey Price is some of the years his regular season numbers weren't as strong, but he was so good when he needed to be, like super clutch.
He was it. When he was in his prime, when he was healthy, he was the guy.
So we had Stamkos at 12, which I will admit probably a little too high. Not taking away anything from Steven Stamkos. I think he's a great player. Yeah. But Leon Draisaitl at 13.
Ooh. Joe
Thornton at 14. Joe Thornton for years, I know, the Stanley Cup eluded him, but always, top.
This is why I don't like
top
this,
point guy.
You're talking about really
feared player.
Yeah, you're talking about really, really good hockey players.
Exactly. We're splitting hairs here.
Yeah, and most of them they'll all be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, so, I mean, Matthews at 15, Erik Karlsson at 16, Nikita Kucherov at 17, Marc-Andre Fleury at 18, and then right below Marc-Andre Fleury, Andrei Vasilevsky. So they have Fleury ahead of Vasilevsky, which is an interesting one as well. Because the Stanley Cups that Fleury won in Pittsburgh, it was Matt Murray that closed out the deal.
Yeah.
Right? Well, okay, sorry. The Fleury won one in 09, and then it was Murray the back-to-back years. Jarome Iginla at 20, which I think it's good to you have to have Jarome Iginla in there. Kopitar at 21, Pavel Datsyuk at 22. Like we said, Keith at 23, Hedman at 24, and then at 25, Jonathan Quick. So to answer your question about Jaromir Jagr,
stiffed.
He has been stiffed.
Yeah, I can't remember. I mean, it may turn out that he just played too long.
Or maybe like his real
in the 90s.
His real best years were in the 90s. Although I feel like in the early 2000s he would have had a couple monster years. I'd have to go back and check.
Yeah, there's the classic case of out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
For a number of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, you're just, pecking order on Hall of Famers.
That's all it is.
I mean, you play, and one of those guys doesn't make it, and the guy below him plays, you don't suffer.
But it's all listen. It's all subjective because you can go by championships, you could go by individual accolades, regular season success, playoff success. Like you can talk yourself into all of these things. But the one, like I said, the one that really jumped off the page for me was Duncan Keith.
Okay, not a list guy. Sorry, didn't mean to offend you. But not a list guy.
To be honest with you, we just needed to talk for 5 minutes.
We did, yes, and you did. Well done. And now let me get this in because we have to. Overdrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. So coming up in the next hour of Overdrive, we're going to have Keegan Matheson on sometime in the next 15 minutes. He's got a busy day. Marty Baron at the bottom of the hour, and we'll map out hour number 3 later on. So I should tell you and remind you that you're watching Overdrive and TSN2, TSN 1050, the iHeartRadio app, and streaming online.